Got a little soul speak on the ascension that we all share. This unveiling, this apocalypse. You know, all this discussion of what is reality, conspiracy, heresy, truth that's stranger than fiction. Doesn't get any better than this. It's not just time to bring on the apocalypse, it's time to start riding it. It's not going to hurt us. Because one thing's for sure, in our conscious mind and even in our subconscious, if that's what you want to call it, we have always survived. And the reason for that is because we never die. So when it comes to ascension, what else is there to talk about?
Thanks.
This ascension, unveiling, is not complicated. It's just a microcosm of the state of our being from any point, from this present moment to any point in our past. And in regard to the past, now we can look back to see, to awaken without the element of linear time. Yeah. Because wisdom still comes. Because the universe is never late. That means we can take from our past the powerful wisdom of the eternal moments, seen when we unveil the hurts and the blame given and received. You know, we've reached a point where forgiveness will cease to exist. Because perfection did not create forgiveness, but as a path to a higher perfection, a new reflection of itself, of ourselves. Yeah, it's true. Just not necessary forgiveness. And neither is earth love. So we can stop chasing both right now and all the false securities and failed searches that go with the lofty goals of a moral world. Both the things that they put beyond our reach and the reasons they gave us for not being able to reach them. It's time to re-enter the fold of the immortal, the fold of the I Am soul. Let's get started with Dr. Joe. That'll be interesting. Hang on one second. I think that's not right. We can't hear you.
I can hear you really clearly.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me get situated. 1 second. Okay, so we're good. Yeah, we got 46 people in the house and must be ready to see what's up with Dr. Joe.
There's a lot going on, old chap, as they say.
I am here, old chap. Okay. Hello, Paul Castaneda, our brother from here in LA, who's been so good to us, and so many people have. So, yeah, you know, we don't do anything professionally here, so we're just going to jump right into it.
Yeah.
What's going on, Dr. Joe? What's happening out there in this on the front lines of the apocalypse?
Well, I found this week particularly difficult, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the whole world has been attacking me from every from every single angle.
Welcome to the club, man.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm finding it hard to keep my balance, but I think I'm doing okay, because I call these testing times, Todd, testing times. And I think it's almost a setup. I feel like it's a setup just to see if we can stay relatively emotionally calm and clear-minded in what's going on for everybody. Because I don't think anybody's escaping this unless you're particularly closed down and can't feel any emotion at all, whether through medication or other reasons. I
Yeah.
think everybody's really feeling the shift and the cleansing of the energy. And we know, don't we all, I know, and I've known for a long time, that this great tidal wave or tsunami of cleansing, is here for a purpose, to bring to the surface all those things that aren't in alignment, both personally, tribally, culturally, and everything human. How does that sound?
I think that sounds perfect. I think that it's interesting because the playing field's being leveled. And what I mean by that is we've seen, and I've been in that chair too, I mean, looking at people going, oh my God, they got it and I don't have it. And what am I missing? And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have these people that have been out there, and I'm not throwing rocks at anybody. I'm just trying to explain that the soul highway requires everyone to be in the same place at the same time, coming from the same intention and pure love. And what I'm trying to say is it's interesting watching it because on one hand, you have this energy of undervalue, and on the other hand, you have this energy of overvalue within self, within ego, and there's nothing wrong with either one of them, but they're integrating in the middle ground, the 0 point. I call it the soul highway. So it's interesting because everybody's having a come to Jesus meeting, And
Yeah.
so what I really like about what you've got to say, and I'll give a shout out to Shanine Mouland, whatever her new name is. And I'm only saying that because I've watched her stuff that she's been writing for the last 2-3 days, and it's all about what's not perfect in me. What is not perfect in me? What am I leaving behind? I saw a post she did the other day, and she said, I could read cards, I could give people readings, I could do this, I could do that, but I'm leaving that behind. It's no longer serving me. We're moving into a different place. It's quantum. It really is. It's quantum. And I know people, we can get all into this different discussion and dialogue, but quantum to me, and I'm not a scientist and I don't proclaim to know it, means that whatever I'm thinking has a direct effect on what happens. And so whether that be ill feelings towards someone, a negative or pessimistic connotation in my thinking towards what I'm about to walk into, or whatever it may, or the opposite, or whatever it may be, I am the creator. I have full power in what's going to happen. And I can either be conscious of it, or I can continue to go down the road unconsciously and not giving an F. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. And I think in my experience, and I can only talk about my own experience because, I process information and I perceive information in the way that I do it, and I can't assume that anybody else does it like the same as me because we're all unique. And I think, I can't project my standards onto somebody else, which I do, right, and expect them to perform in the way of my standards when I can't even live up to my own standards and principles. So it's tricky, and I can feel it happening. I believe, and I've said this to you before, that this is all about potential, because the quantum realm is about potentiality. It's about what a human can achieve if they totally and absolutely let go to a higher power. Now, to me, a higher power is something that's deep within ourselves. It's not something that's outside of ourselves. It's deep within us. So I think that the deeper you can surrender and let go, the more access you get to the solution that you're looking for, And I know people can glibly say, we're already what we want to be and need to be. But I think there's a process in human development where you just have to go through all the shit to find that treasure that's buried, because what I'm seeing more and more out is this is about emotions. It's about feeling feelings. It's about experiencing all sorts of feelings. And to me, one life isn't enough, Todd, you know. And whether we reincarnate or whether it's just about different timelines and different possibilities, I don't know, mate. You know, I'm trying to learn like everybody else. I've said to you often, people come to me asking for advice, and honestly, I don't know what's happening from one moment to the next. And yet, there's another part of me that's completely and utterly calm about it, cool about it, and knows that this process is meant to be happening in the way that it is. It's about surrender to me. I'm only talking about me, you know, and the words I use are the words that I've been brought up with and stuff like that, you know. And, you know, people can disagree, and it's all right. I don't mind, you know, because I try to listen to everything that everybody has to say, you know, and sometimes a little gem comes out from the most unexpected source, and it sort of reconfigures my thinking and helps me to move on. That's why we need to be talking with one another, not arguing. We need not to be competing. This is just Dr. Joe's version of how it is, you know, because even the dull and ignorant have their story. That's not my line. That's in the Desiderata. And to me, what that means is if we perceive somebody to be thick, right, and not have anything to contribute, then we could miss the key that will take us to the next level of our soul's development, you know.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep your heart open and listen from the heart, not from the head, because this is where the division is. This is where the relativity is. This is absolute, this is relative, and this jumps from one side to the other all the time. And when it thinks it's come to the solution, there's always a bit on the other side to think, I wonder if I've made the right choice. And then off again goes this bloody argument, you know. And so it's never fully sure. But when I get an answer from my heart, right, which is inside of myself, but it's outside of my ego, when I got an answer, I know by the way that I feel that it's the correct course of action to take. And you know what, Todd? It's generally opposite to what my ego's telling me.
Of course it is. I saw a post today, and I don't know who it is, or I would give credit to it. It said basically, this is not a, this is a, what was it, a conscious, collective consciousness, not a collective comparison. So, you know, and then going back to what you're saying about the heart, we've been programmed and conditioned, and really in many respects designed to something's put before us and we react a certain way. And I think the cliche is worn out. Oh, you don't react, you respond, and all, whatever it is that you put out. Once you put it out, it's done. You know, you can backpedal and crawfish and all, do whatever you want, but it's done, and accept it. Yeah. Accept that. And what I love about what you're saying is about, and we hear this and we're learning it to a deeper and deeper level to run everything through the heart. But I think that there is a huge opportunity for myself and for everyone else that when we do respond or reply or whatever we put out there as a result of something being put before us, which we in that moment think is something foreign to us rather than something that is us, we always have the ability, and it's going to take a lot of courage, guts, and balls to go back and say, you know what, regardless of what came at me, here's what I did, and I'm sorry. I see what's happened to me. Here's what happened. Here's where I'm at now. And I go back to an old Soul Speaks. I'll give it back to you, but it was like, see me for who I am, not who I was or who you think I am. Yeah. And I will do the same for you. And only then will the light be let in, you know? So we are in a quantum atmosphere. We are in a real-time present moment atmosphere. So whatever the fuck has happened has happened. What is going on right now, I'm different, you're different than we were 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. And let's give that respect to ourselves, most importantly, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. We can project all we want and this and that, But the bottom line is we know by this point that if something makes us uncomfortable, there's something in us that needs a hug. There's something in us that needs some recognition and transformation.
Yeah, totally agree. And I've been brought up in the school of spiritual hard knocks, you know, call it tough love, call it what you like. But it was drilled into me by somebody who was further along the road. No, I know there isn't really a road. You know, before the police come in and tell me off, right? I know there isn't really a road, you know, or the road less traveled or the untrodden path or whatever, you know, but I was guided by somebody who'd been practicing these same principles for a long time. And he said, Joe, whether you like it or not, as soon as you point the finger outwards, you've missed the point, because there's three fingers coming right back at you, right? And it's all about what's happening in me. It's all about me. It sounds selfish, but I try, when I get a little sort of bullet coming in, as soon as I feel the grip, I try and turn my eyes inwards to say, what is it in me that I need to learn here? You know, please show me what it is. And, you know, I've developed over the last 25 years this I am approach to health and well-being. And basically, I'm teaching people what I've been taught. I'm not the master. I don't feel like a master anytime, you know, and people can say, no, we're all masters and students at this. We can come out with these phrases that just get repeated all the time, you know, but fucking hell, I mean, I think, because as soon as I say it, sometimes I think I'm going to get a whole load of comments to say here, oh yes, but we, you know, and I think, oh fuck, here we go again, you know, and I'm not being horrible, you know, and this is who I am. This is where I'm at. I can only tell you, open me heart up and saying, this is how I feel. This is what I'm thinking at the moment, you know, and always someone will come in to say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, you know. I think the only thing that anybody needs to do is to be shown how to go into their heart, to open up, to listen in, and to ask for the answer from deep within inside. It's the soul speak. It's soul speaks silently. I put that thing up today, you know. It's sometimes silence is the only way forward, because in silence, more information comes in. So if I can help people to get to that still point by practicing simple breathing techniques and by practicing coherent breathing and certain gentle moving techniques, and it gets them to the still point where they get the download, then that's my job done, you know. And as for what should they do, I can make suggestions based upon what I've experienced, but I always say it might work in exactly the opposite way for you. I don't know, because Todd, every soul, in my view, in my opinion, right, and I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, you know, okay, I'm wrong and I'll admit it, but I believe every single soul is totally 100% responsible for choosing the path that they incarnated into, and also for choosing for accepting the consequences of the actions they're taking. That to me is 100% responsibility. It says in a book somewhere, did not we ourselves set the ball rolling, you know, and I believe that that's true. Over to you, old chap.
So you bring up several things I want to hit real quick so I don't lose my flow and forget. But first of all, silence. A lot of people talk about breathing. They talk about meditation, take a walk, do a dance, whatever you want to do, right? Listen to some music, get some aromatherapy, whatever. You know what silence is? Shut your fucking mouth. Okay, and I don't mean to be rude, but so Morgan taught me something. It was a very hard lesson, which is I had to say what I knew, right? Oh, Morgan, guess what? Da, da, da. And she said, if you know it, why you got to say it? If you really know it from a higher perspective, why you got to say it? Because you know from a higher perspective, everything is energy, and you don't have to get down into the physical and the linear and the literal to bring some substantiation or validation to the ego. So I'm like, oh, wow. So if I know it, just keep my mouth shut. Then on the other hand, if I'm on the other end of the spectrum where I'm triggered, imbalanced, reactive, feeling bad, tired, whatever the case is, it may seem like that it would be difficult to keep my mouth shut. But one thing we can all learn, when we are in that state, we either know it in the moment or we know it shortly thereafter, after we open our mouth.
Yeah.
And so to me, or, you know, I've kind of come to me over the last few days, not any particular situations or anything, but it was just kind of like, you know what? The best thing to do is just be quiet. ST, you know, FU, whatever, shut the F up, you know, just be quiet, because it serves you. If you're imbalanced, or even if you don't know you are, shut up. Because the only thing you can do by opening your mouth is increase the potential of showing your ass, you know, which is not even about the people that see you showing your ass. It's about you yourself showing your ass. Then you got to go down that road of self-degradation, self-judgment, self-consciousness, and self-forgiveness, hopefully. And you go through that whole mind, you know, game, right? I think that's one thing that pops up. And then the other thing that pops up is, I look at some people out there, and I got to tell you, a few of them, they rub me the wrong way, but I watch them every day. You know why I watch them every day? Because they have the balls and the guts and the courage to step into what their perception is of their own divinity. They're saying, I am a starseed, I am a Blu-ray, I am a ancient builder, I am an angelic, I'm a galactic, whatever, and they're owning it. Now, do I agree with everything that comes out of the mouth? No. But what I do agree with, and what I do align with, is the fact that they're owning it. Now, where am I going with this? So we've been traveling around for the last week. We're in this abyss, in the womb of Mother Creation, where everything is darkness, and the only thing that can come out of it is what you bring to the table, bring to the party. And so it's like, at some level, what you were saying earlier, we chose this, we set this up. We are in direct communication with our higher selves. We went through a situation before we left Hawaii, as an example only. And in that period of time, say 10 days, 2 weeks, we were told, do not broadcast. Do not broadcast. And we're like, okay, well, if we don't broadcast, how are we going to pay rent? And, you know, how are we going to do this? I mean, because everything flows based on what we put out. Like, don't do it. You know, don't do it. So we get to the end of the month. We don't have the money for the rent. Long story short, we knew on that morning we're supposed to leave. Had we had that money, fear would have gotten a hold of us. We would have paid the rent and not listened to the higher selves. The higher selves are more embedded now. The communication lines are more clear. And we need to start looking at that, because that is us speaking to ourselves. And that higher self is coming into us. It is literally coming into us and will be part of our moment by moment interactions. So I think two points to conclude. One, it isn't real complicated to be silent. Shut your mouth. And I'm a big talker, and I'm learning, you know, I'm just bringing that down to a personal level. It's not that difficult. You don't have to go sit under the Bodhi tree, and you don't have to go, you know, sit on the, you know, Sea of Galilee or whatever the case is and find this place. You can actually just shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Okay. Whether you think you're on the light end of the spectrum or the confused, discombobulated other end of the spectrum. And then the second thing I would say before I pass it back to you is, our higher selves, and like in the example I gave you, arranged for the perfection of us not broadcasting. We honored that. We said, okay, we trust. And then what happens? 24 hours later, you're sitting in South Central LA eating huaraches and tacos. And Morgan's like, I'll never go back into another Mexican restaurant. No, I'm kidding. But I think our communication line is intact, and we can now have some faith in that. And that's a big help, because in retrospect, it may not help the human in the moment, but in retrospect, you can look back and say, oh, okay, that was perfect.
Yep. Once again, mate, I agree. I think total surrender means total surrender. It's not 99.9%. You know, if we're going to trust, this is the difference between faith and trust, really. Faith is almost like a sort of cognitive thinking process. You can have all the faith in the world, but unless you put it into action and trust that it's going to happen, nothing ever happens, and that completes the cycle in my understanding. That, faith without works is dead, meaning that, you can be given the information, you can be given the direction, but if you don't put one foot in front of the other, it doesn't ground, you don't grow, and then you get stuck in the same old sort of loop, until the pain becomes enough of you not taking it. It almost forces your foot to take the action, And every morning I wake up, and I've done this for 27 years, as you know, and I tap on my heart and I say, what's on the cards today? Just show me, try and show me in some clear way, either through my thoughts or through my feelings. And I'm really more intuitive, and I'm more sensitive, and a deeper feeling. And sometimes, Todd, we need to, this is my view, mate. Sometimes we need to say something, but we get moved, if you like, by our soul to speak out at the right time, because otherwise we can just sit there in silence with a forced tightness, swallowing shit that's not going to do us any good, So to me, again, this is about, sometimes you've got to speak and sometimes you've got to shut up. You know what I mean? And anything that's forced, again, I think if you're trying to do something, it's, to me, that's an ego thing. If it's, do you see what I mean? It's a difficult thing, but I think we change because it's the grace or the evolutionary impulse that changes us. And once we accept that we see something clearly, we can say, now, please, if it be your will, take it away. And generally speaking, that gets flushed away and you get moved up to the next level. And I know there's no levels, but you get moved up to the next level. And then there's a sort of a plateau. Well, this is what happens to me. There's a plateau of serenity, and you think, I've made it. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is nirvana. And then 2 days later, another big cob of shite comes in, which represents another lesson. I know there's no lessons, but, all that sort of thing. Words are sometimes obfuscating, aren't they? They confuse things, And I put a post up in the week, and before I say that, there's a phrase that I learned a long time ago. And it was, if you don't want to fight, don't get into the boxing ring, Because if you get in the boxing ring, you're likely to get clouted, So stay out, stay in the audience and watch what's going on. And that's what I've been trying to do this week. I've not taken any sides. I see this going on in all sorts of places, in the places that I work at. Everybody seems to be having a go at each other. And I've almost been apart from it most of the time, witnessing the craziest, most bizarre show on the planet. It's like I've got 12 antennae going out here, all tuned into different languages all the time, And if I hear one that's particularly interested and I get hold of it, whoosh, I've gone away with it. Then I have to pull myself back and try and remain calm, So I'm the sort of master controller of this, and I do that through relaxation, through breathing in a certain way, and just trying to watch it rather than participate in it, And I found also that it's sometimes those closest to you, right? I mean, you can see people are, I can see people around me who are close to me who are falling apart, and it's not my game, mate. It's not my bag. And I find that really, really difficult not to step in with some sort of words or suggestions. Advice, because sometimes you get like, get away from me. It's nothing to do with you. And the truth of it is, it's nothing to do with me, Todd.
That's right.
It's hard for me to differentiate between what's interfering and what's facilitating or supporting somebody to take the action that they need to take themselves. I don't know the answer moment by moment. My whole life is about feeling and sensing my way through every single moment of my life.
Morgan got some really good intel a couple nights ago. I think it was actually yesterday. So we lay down in the afternoon, had a session, and immediately these words just came out. And let me just preface it by saying this. I struggled for years, and really probably up until yesterday. I really struggled with this whole, anyone trying to tell me what divine union was within yourself. Oh, you got to marry the feminine and the masculine. How in the hell do you do that? How do you know when it's done? Oh, I had a ceremony with myself under the moon. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm really not. I'm just saying, for me, like, where's the juice, man? I mean, how do you really know? How do you do that? Not in 5D esoteric terms, but in human hybrid souls in transition somewhere in between 3D and the higher dimensions, where there's no rule book, where we're writing the new template, we're writing the new blueprint. So what it came in, and it really helped me a lot because of the history I've had. You know, we're semi-public out there. Soulogy semi-public. There's a lot of challenging and opportunistic exchanges and energies and such, right? That you try to get beyond the 3D human, the ego human, the linear. You try to bank on the higher understanding and try to conduct yourself accordingly. But what came in was, and we're talking energy here, it's very important, at least from my perception, that we keep it in that context. It has virtually nothing to do with your physical gender's incarnation. This is where I was perplexed as I watched these energies over the last few months and a couple of years, where I would see masculine incarnated individuals or the opposite, exhibiting the opposite gender's shadow. So the intel that came in was the masculine energy has carried an overvalued self-image, okay? And the feminine frequency has carried an undervalued from self, perception of self-image. So therefore, the masculine energy, which has nothing to do with your incarnation of your gender, was always doing this. And the feminine was not talking at all. So I started to think, oh, wow, that makes sense. Because I'm a talker. I'm obviously a man. I've had alpha male tendencies, groomed that way, conditioned that way. And I have been learning. And then people have even said to me, you're getting quieter. You're getting quieter. I'm not quiet yet. But the whole point is, I could see inside myself. There was a voice inside myself that hadn't been heard, that had held space, been patient, supported the whole ball of wax, that, to your point, is the part of us that needs to speak. It's soft, but it's firm. It's fair, it's loving, and it doesn't need any attention. In fact, it doesn't even want the attention, but we need that contribution from that feminine energy, which is in all of us. And then the other side of us is that loud, kind of arrogant insecurity that has to show you how big, their toolbox is and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Look what I did in my past. Look who I was. Look what I've done. And so it's kind of this merging. I don't see it as this great divide that's real horrible. I actually see it as the integration of the two. And because there's no way, because the one side, even the feminine side, the feminine energetic side can't say, oh, here's how you do it. No, because it still needs that blend from that other polarity. So it's meeting in the middle now. And I think, as I've said many times, I think we need to give ourselves some credit. I think we need to give ourselves some credit and start looking at anything that comes up that's challenging as an opportunity for expansion, first and foremost for ourselves, because everything is flows from there.
On our first show, I talked about peace of mind, and I said that peace of mind is inversely proportional to expectations. And you said to me, what does that mean? So I explained it. The more expectations you have of anything, the less peace of mind. Mm-hmm. Because expectation is a looking outwards. Expectare means to look outwards. So we need to do, less expect and more inspect. That's what I believe. And that's what I do all the time, Yeah. And sitting here now with you, I can never tell what's sort of going to come out, because I just turn up and allow spontaneousness to happen, But I'm sitting here now. I feel completely and utterly calm. I feel really, really clear-minded. even though the whole of my world in an external way is falling apart, you know. And I know that I'm not the only one, or that's my perception of it from a human point of view. But if I go back and deep into my heart, I just get everything's in line. Everything's taking place exactly as it should.
Yeah.
Keep your nose out of it, son. We're helping you more than you can possibly realize. Now, I know that that's not something outside of me that's helping me. That's a deeper part of me that's helping me, you know. And you know, I have things like, what is the difference between soul and spirit, you know? And I get clear answers to that, you know. And today I go, God is not love, Joe. God is the emitter of love. Love is the feeling that God has for all of us, you know. And I'm thinking, what does, what are you sending me this for, you know?
Yeah.
Because I get, you know, like you, or probably like most of us on this channel, you know, we keep getting these downloads of information, and it takes a while to sink in and have some meaning. Well, that's how it works with me, anyway, you know. But I know, just to go back to, this is about forgiveness. To me, this is about forgiveness, but it's not about forgiving anybody outside of ourselves. This is about forgiving those parts of us that take the bait to seemingly external things that hook us and tug us and cause us to feel disturbed. You know, it's deep shit, this, mate. It's deep shit. But if you can become more and more and more sensitive and silent and more tuned in to the body sensations, then I think you've got a better chance of smelling it coming and taking the hook out before the hook's gone in, you know, breathing it away almost, you know. And I feel like I've had a shield around me this week, and there's been all sorts of things flying in, and the occasional one must find a hole to get in, you see. So I think this is all part of improving that protection. But what is there any need for protection? You know, when we you know, so this is a tussle I have. And again, it's about discernment. For me, this is about discerning what is from ego and what is from spirit, you know.
Yeah.
And I haven't got that cracked yet. I'm trying to sink in and feel my way into that all the time.
I think that's the key too. You know, when you hear, are you are exposed to a frequency, whether it be verbalization or something you read or a piece of music or being in nature, the frequency of it, you know, it is what it is. You know, I think that's why the whole yogi guru thing's gone away, because, you know, I got it figured out and you don't. Now, they may not have that conscious intention, whoever that person may be, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it, whatever the case is. I'm not trying to talk about people. What I'm trying to talk about is a frequency and energy and evolution. And I believe we've made some strides past these things. And I believe they're showing themselves to us a little bit. And when you go back to the forgiveness thing, you know, it's never about the other people. And we say that with a cliche. It's never them, it's always me. But what I mean is, we all know this. When we do something, they're not in our heads. We're in our heads.
Yeah.
And it's not about, oh, they did this and they did that. It's about, man, I wonder if I should have done that. And you feel bad. And you end up, well, we did. We used to spend our time and our energy focusing on defending our position and rationalizing our existence, you know, and our stance. We're now, and I see more and more in myself and other people, I see more and more people saying, hey, I'm unplugging. And I don't even know why. But I go back to what we said at the top of the show. You know, in a world of, in a realm or an experience of absolutes that won't work, because there isn't one, because we're making it, being quiet, for all the heat you might take for it, is probably a very smart thing to do. Because if you know from a higher perspective, why the hell do you got to say anything? And if you don't know, then I think we've all got enough scar tissue and life experience in these incarnations to say, well, every time I open my mouth, things only get worse. You know?
I know it well, mate. I know it well. I've got much better at that over the years, you know, but I'm still not perfect on that one yet, you know. And strangely enough, you know, I've developed this I am approach you keep going on about, you know. There's a counter to it, you know. when we get attacked, right, we have this automatic mechanism in us called the fight or flight response. You know that it's a defensive reaction. That's it's defensive and puts a shield up against a perceived threat. You know, and I've called that the F off approach. It's an F off trigger because it stands for fight or flight function of the body. So when we perceive a threat, that's the F off bit. But there's another F off, right, that counters it, and that's called focus on feelings first. And I think that the more the head gets involved, right, the further away we get from the solution, really. So the idea is, like I've said to you many times before, is best take the head off, metaphorically decapitate ourselves, detach it, throw it as far away as possible, and just live in trust from an open and flowing heart. How do I know that I'm doing well? Because I feel like right now, my heart's open and flowing. I'm talking from my heart. I'm not really sure what I'm going to say. It's just coming out, So that's my only sort of gauge, really, as whether I'm in line or not. Because this week I've had to stand up against somebody, and I've had to be really firm and really lay down my point of view. Now, the old Joe, who was more inclined not to say anything, right? The old Joe would prefer say nothing and hope that it goes away. And I kept getting the push, Joe, will you please stand up for yourself and say what you mean and mean what you say? Now, the other person didn't like it, right? And then the older ego comes in to say, I wonder, should I have said anything? It looks like it's upset that. Do you see what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so I'm going on now. And then I get, Joe, how do you feel now? Do you feel unobstructed? Do you feel open and flowing? And do you feel calm? And the answer was, yes, I do. Todd, that's the only gauge I've got. And the other thing I do is, in case I'm wrong, I have somebody who I trust with all my heart and soul. I ring them up and say, I don't mention names. I say, this occasion has just happened. This was my response, right? And they then sort of tune in, if you like, where two or more are gathered. And they say, well, I feel, Joe, that you've taken the right action. How do you feel? Feel okay. How do I feel? Feel okay. Carry on. And then it's forgotten then, and get on with your life. But the old Joe, I used to regurgitate. That would set the gut going. Then I'd start to feel shit. My mood would go down. My energy would go down. And then I'd reach for a bottle or a drug or a drink or a cigarette or something like that, just to calm the gut disturbances that I had,
Yeah.
And just another thing that's come to me, there's a phrase that says, why tell a man with a broken leg he's got a broken leg? Because as soon as he stands up, he's going to fucking fall over and know about it, you see. So why do we have to point these things out? Because deep in the heart of every human being, they know what's right and they know what's wrong, right? And that's what I mean. So sometimes there's no point in pointing it out, because that's just to say that we know better, So again, sometimes you'd have to point it out. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to go forward. Sometimes you have to go backwards. But most of the time, you just have to sit there, zip it, say nothing, and just breathe through your heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm still a big believer, especially for myself, that the purest form of communication and messages that you receive from the universe comes out of your own mouth. Even if you, from a conscious level, think you're talking about somebody else. Listen to what you're saying about other people. Listen to what you're saying about situations. Listen, and I'm not just talking about mudslinging or let's even call it constructive criticism or finger pointing. I'm talking about those things that we give our power over to, such as, oh, this administration is going to save our ass. Oh, and I'm not knocking any part of the universe because I'm all parts of it, but giving my power over to the Galactic Federation, it's going to land with 1,000 spaceships and take us all home. We're the ones down here doing the work. We're the ones that are being supported. And we're being supported for a reason, because we're on this mission, for lack of a better word, where there is no absolute outcome. The absolute outcome is found in the free will that we all carry, that we've all been gifted. We have been gifted free will as in the image, because the Creator, if you want to put it in those terms, had free will. The creator could have sat there in perfect harmony, vibrationally, resonance, sound, color, the whole 9 yards, but said, hey, let's go see what's going, let's go see what we can get into. Let's go see what we can find. Let's go see what we can create. This is where we're at. It's not about revelations, apocalypse, this has been prophesized and this is how it's, no, this isn't how it's going to go down. The way it's going to go down in this moment is the way it's going to go down. But 10 minutes from now, 30 minutes from now, 30 days from now, as the collective consciousness expands, it's going to be a new fortune. And this is what we're doing. And we've only got one shot to do it, man. And I just want to end with one thing. Franco Di Nicola comes on, Di Nicola, and he says, Di Nicola if you're from Texas, Di Nicola if you're from South Australia. So, but he says, he's got recollection of incarnations on other planets, full recollection, lifetimes. And he has a lot of history with working with disincarnated souls. And every one of those souls, be it this planet or whatever planet, that he has engaged with, no matter how grueling it was and how intense and painful or whatever terms you want to use during the incarnation, once they got to the other side, they're like, wow, that was a blast.
Yeah. Well, I think, some people believe this is a prison planet, some sort of a penal colony, and in a way, this is about behavior change, because what determines behavior is the way we think and process our thoughts and the way we feel and process emotions. That's what determines the choices that we come to, so in the end, you can only really look at the actions, because that represents your thinking and your feeling and the processing of those things. So in a way, it's to keep an eye on your own behavior and keep your nose out of everybody else's. There was a thing I had to do in order to clear my side of the street. It was to make a list of everybody I'd harmed. And if possible, talking this through with a knowledgeable person is to go and make a direct amend to a person, right? And just clean my side of the street, even though they may have harmed me. I had to go back and say, I am sorry that I've harmed you. I hope that you'll forgive me. And this was hard, I had to shut my mouth, because I wanted to say, but if only you hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have reacted in the same way. So to me, I've learned, and I know that this is true, it's a principle, I believe it will help everybody, is own your shit, right? Own up to your shit, and once you've owned up to it, let it flow away and then get on with your life then, and because living one moment at a time. And I think that we're all going through this. And my sort of mission is just to pass on my experience, my strength and my hope, not to tell anybody what to do, but make suggestions, give them the simple tools that I was given. Todd, I don't know about you, but I used to overcomplicate everything. I would spend time in this, what they used to call analysis paralysis. I didn't know whether to go this way or that way or this way. And what if this happens? But if that happens, so my head would go off into a million different directions, and I'd be paralyzed and couldn't make a choice because I was just rigid with all these options. And now I just go to, what do I feel that I need to do next? Take that action. And once I take the action, I'll know whether it's right or wrong by the way that I feel. And that's how I go on now. I've just listened to Shanine with somebody else talking. The same thing is, keep it simple, stupid. The KISS approach, one step at a time, one breath at a time. Keep your heart open, have respect for others, including yourself, and do the best you can. And I honestly believe, Todd, that's all you can do. And if your best isn't good enough for somebody else, that's got nothing to do with you. It's if you see me here now, I'm all right with me, right? I'm happy with the way it's going forward. I've got no idea what's coming up in the future, but if I carry on in this vein, I'm sure that it will be a positive outcome or a growing outcome or something like that. So I've got loads of trust in the process at the moment. Am I like that all the time? No, I'm a hell. you know, I'm like that most of the time, but there are times when I have massive doubts about, am I making this up? What's this language of light all about? Am I speaking through my arse? Or what? So, when people come to me, I have to say, I used to be, I know, and I'd make up a lie just to say, oh no, it's this, that, and the other, I'd be blagging all the time. But most of the time, people ask me now, and I say, I've got no idea.
Good answer. Good answer. Sarah Griffiths, she says, wipe your own windows before you start peeing in mine. She actually said peeping, but I had to leave it. Well, I remember a few years ago, I put myself in rehab to make sure I wasn't losing my mind, and it went through anger management, went through a lot of different stuff. But I remember when I got there, and I hadn't been through a 12-step meeting, because what you're describing is part of the 12-step approach. So I guess somehow inherently I knew. So I went out to the courtyard when I got there, like the first day, and I started writing down some stuff. And what I did was I picked up the phone and I called this person who had been an absolute shit. Okay. But I made a list of 10 things, and I called this person and I said, look, I got to say these 10 things to you. And they were all about, I apologize for blaming you for this. I apologize for blaming you for that. And the funny thing was, and this is how it all works, right? In those 10 things that I said to this person, I had none of that. If you'd only done that, if you only hadn't done that, and you've only hadn't done this and fucked me over and all that stuff. And I didn't have any of that. And I didn't think about it at the time because it really cleared me out. I guess from a higher perspective or a higher place or higher aspect, it was all perfect and worked out. The human wasn't really aware of the impact of it. But my point is this: I tried it again with others. Some of them I was able to operate in the same way, not have any second guesses or any resentment or whatever you want to call it. But others I wasn't. Others I went through it and it was painful and it hurt and it made me even angrier. So other people took longer, and some of them I'm probably still working on. But I guess what I'm trying to say is some progress is better than no progress. And if we were all at a point like you were describing earlier right now, which I would basically describe as we're all walking on water, the party's over, man. Back to Franco's experiences with disincarnated souls. I mean, they're in that place when he's talking to them of, wow, what a trip. That was great. Yeah. They're in that place where everything is what it is and everything's congruent. We're in a place to expand creation, and it takes these type of experiences, unknown things, mysteries, walking through fears, whatever you want to call it, dealing with our own shit, whatever you want to call it. This is how creation grows. And I think we're very fortunate because we're actually becoming conscious of that and able to start to look at things that look like this big shit storm, which you actually can look at and go with less linear time having passed. Yes. You can actually look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, this is perfect. And that's not a cliche where I'm just going to go la-di-da and spiritually bypass it. You can actually say, you know what? I can see how this is perfect. Now, this is a gift. You know what I mean? And that, I think that's a big, big plus for us right now.
I feel great in myself. I do. If I let my head drift off into what's going to happen in the future, as soon as I go further than the end of my nose, I can feel the old anxiety coming, the old trepidations, the old, worries and concerns. So I have a sense of it because I'm tuned into my feelings quite clearly now. I can sense when I'm going offline. So I'm able then to tune myself back in. And I just say to my heart, I just say, please show me clearly what the next move is, And so I have to trust something that's inside of myself, but feels outside of myself,
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm realizing as well for me is the more space I'm making in my physical body now, right? It's almost like I'm making more space for the light body or the soul to get in and to clear any physical stuff. Because over the last 7 months, my body has changed in all sorts of ways. It really has. It's almost as if, I mean, my posture's changed.
Yeah, me too.
It's like every single organ has been worked on, and the pain sometimes has been horrendous. And I've got that thing is the trust. I go into my heart and I say, look, I've either got some incurable bleeding disease going on here, or it's you, mob, working on me, because this is the way I talk to my guides and my guides and guardians, you know, and helpers and inspirers, you know. And I say, look, tomorrow, relieve me of this and take it away from me if it's you lot messing about, right?
Yeah.
And no, honest to God, Todd, what happens is the pain goes away. Right, and then it comes back the next day, you know. So what I'm seeing is, and I can feel deeply that yes, my DNA is being recalibrated. You know, this clearly goes along with the Taoism and stuff like that. You know, they've known about this for a long time. You know, I feel really internally strong. You know, I feel like I could just like punch a house down if I needed to and stuff like this. You know, so there's all those things that have happened to me. And I do feel that my body is being changed from these higher dimensions as well, you know. So it's almost like there's a spiritualization of the flesh that's going on,
Yeah.
you know. And I think the more I can care for what I'm eating, the more I can care for what I'm drinking, and the more space I create through relaxation and stretching, I think it gives the opportunity, if you like, for the soul to come through and express itself in a different way, you know. So I just felt that I needed to say that. Because I think some people struggle with hanging on to stuff, and with the pressure of spirit coming in, the pain gets more and more until they let go and allow it to work through them.
Yeah. So a couple of comments. One is I absolutely 100%, 100% over the last few months, especially over the last few weeks, I'm actually accepting. I'm gonna have to use that term. I'm gonna say this: the last thing I'm accepting in this transition, I can accept the 5D, I can accept my ancient lineage, I can accept everything I've received for me, even the things I've experienced with Morgan, which are supernatural, interdimensional. I can accept that. And I didn't realize this until a couple of days ago, and it really came back now when you're saying this, is that the last thing that I'm accepting here, and it's just started to happen, is that my body's actually changing. It's actually going from a biological to a light plasma, whatever you want to call it, but it's actually happening. And I think for me, that's important, because if I don't accept that, it's not going to happen. And we know one thing, after all this stuff, that they're all parallel. If you stop this ball from going up the mountain, the other ones are going to stop too. It's a full court press, and it's a collective multidimensional aspect team effort. I think the other thing that kind of jumps out, and this is something that's been coming around too, because I've been reading some interesting posts, and I hope she doesn't mind, but Jen Reynolds, who was kind enough, her and Eric, to let us use their apartment in Laguna Beach for 3 days when we got here, she put a post out a couple of days prior to that. She says, I am an intuitive eater. And she goes on to tell this story about how she went vegan. And then as time went on, her body said, and this was for a few years, and then her body says, oh, you need some protein. You need to go eat some meat. And then she went through this. And then she's talking about these experiences she had recently where she couldn't eat meat anymore. It was making her sick. And then this thing that seemed healthy did the same. And then this worked and that worked. And so she said, I am now labeling myself as an intuitive eater. My body tells me what I need. And I guess what I'm getting at there is all of this, to thine own self be true, physician heal thyself, I am the God, goddess, whatever, is really a very personal trip. And what's good for you may not be good for me on the surface. It's all energy. It's all the same thing. We all have different programming, different codes that are not open, that are open, whatever, influences, conditioning. It really is about what goes on right here in that blend of the mind, body, and spirit. But I just wanted to reemphasize that that for me, and this just came to me a couple of days ago, was that, hey, you know, I'm looking at myself in the bathtub as I'm admiring myself. I'm just kidding. But I'm looking at myself. I'm kidding, Joe. But I'm looking at myself and I'm going, you're actually turning. You actually need to accept that you could live for 200, 300, 500, 1,000 years, really whatever you want. You know, there is no limit here. And I think, I really believe that that's a huge part of our transition and our awakening and awareness and potentiality, is to actually bring the body into it.
Yep, I totally agree. And that's what's happening to me. I also am an intuitive eater. I won't have anybody tell me what to eat. I won't have anybody put pressure on me to change in any way that they think I should change. The change has got to come from within me. And I allow my soul to choose what it wants to eat. I'm not a great meat eater, but I do eat meat, right? But the whole point is, you know, it's my soul that will change me, my ego self. You know, to me, the human is the ego self, the mind, body, human bit. That's the ego, right? That's surrendered now. And I surrendered and say, right, have me, do with me what you will, right? And help me to bear witness of your strength, your power, your love, and everything else. Do with me. And I think that this thing is moving through me, my soul, or the I am presence, or whatever it's called, right? And I think it's transforming my physical body as well. I'm 64 years of age, coming up to 65. I feel like a 15-year-old, you know. I'm running, I'm swimming, and everything else. I'm carrying a lot of weight, but that now seems to have changed recently, and I've started to lose the weight again. So, Todd, I don't know, but I'm going with it. And I really feel that I am being changed by something much more powerful than me. And I know what it is. It's the soul progressing, and the soul expressing it through self, through the human. Because as you know, mate, the human is the hero. Right? You know,
Yeah.
and the human, and I think people need to see people going through hell and coming out the other end. You know, if that's not bearing witness, then nothing else is. You know,
Yeah.
so people like ourselves, we've had to go through shit. You know, I literally went through shit. You know, when I was really ill, dirtying myself, waking up in my own excrement, and all that horrible stuff. You know, and I've had to come out of that. Right. I used to be in that state, you know, waking up in such a terrible state. And my head would say to me, what is the matter with me? Right. And I was in this state, you know, so I've literally gone through shit, come out the other end. I smell a bit better these days, you know, but not much better, mate, you know, but I smell a bit better. But what I'm trying to say is, when you surrender, we surrender, I understand, our physical, our mental, and our emotional bodies. We give over the whole lot to the next level of our becoming, you know, and then we become that thing. And when we get to that one, then there'll be the next stage of evolution, or soul's journey, or soul's progress. You know, it's never ending. And the most important thing is, it's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
nothing's perfect, mate. Even God's not perfect, because God, in the shape of us collectively, are moving forward into new territories that have never been explored before. You know,
That's right.
and I really believe that with all my heart, with all my soul, body, mind, and every other part of me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, that was a big one. You know, my body's been speaking to me for months and months and months. And in tandem with the higher dimensional or multidimensional communications with my other aspects, with the emotional, with the physical, in terms of healing, in terms of habits, in terms of patterns, behaviors, in terms of belief systems, in terms of attachment to things, and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, over the last few days, my Kundalini has been slowly rising, no pun intended, but I mean, it's been slowly coming around, and I'm standing there going, okay, you know, something's coming. Like something's coming, like I don't even want to think about it, because I don't have that attachment anymore. Whatever the case is, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to allow this. And from my own communion, or my own communication with my higher aspects, I'm hearing what we got coming here is way beyond anything you could even imagine. So that's where I go back to the body and think to myself, this could be 800 years. This could be 1,000 years. It could actually be that. It could be a group of people, say 1 million people on the planet that in this particular era, all of a sudden live to be 250 years old, and the mainstream can't ignore it. You know, something's happening and it involves our body. And I guess that's what I'm just trying to say as we close it out, because I've not bought into that. I've said it. I've said, oh, I'm turning a light body. This is changing in me. I see this, I see that. But until the last few days, I really started to understand, you know what, this is actually happening, which means that limitlessness now applies to what we might deem as a physicality. And who knows how this realm goes, because it is going to be based on our own quantum influence. It could turn into the 99th dimension, where you can stay as long as you want and be in a physical body. I don't know. We don't know.
But it's the same, mate. I mean, I used to think that I was open-minded, but I realized that I was broad-minded. That's completely different. Open-mindedness to me means, this is my interpretation, is always living in a state of not knowing, and that allows for limitless expansion then, because there are things happening on this planet now. 20 years ago, the influence of a mobile phone was not even recognized. Look at how it's changed the world. Look at how all this technology is changing so quickly. When one thing comes out now, it's almost like redundant the next week because something new's taken its place, So, it's just phenomenal. If we use this technology for the power of good, and everything will be good, but there'll always be obstructions. They're there to help us to refine. But the thing that I like is, which wolf are you gonna feed? Is it the black one or is it the white one? And that's the choice we have from every single moment. Are you gonna feed the one with the open heart, or are you gonna feed the one who's growling, miserable, negative, and snapping all the bleeding time? That's the choice we have, mate.
Well, we should know one thing by now, that no matter how much conviction we have in terms of our own victimization, being a victim, you cannot ascend being a victim.
No.
Period. So it doesn't matter how much proof you have and how bad it was and whatever. For all of us, we've all been through, proportionate to our experience, we've all been through the same level, period. And if you think you've been through, or I think I've been through more than you've been through, that's no different than me saying I'm better than you. Separation is separation. So the way I look at it from here out, I'm gonna let you conclude the show, but the way I look at it is anything, and I don't give a damn if it's Galactic Federation or white hats in the government or Jesus coming down on a chariot or whatever the case is, if it does not contain 100% oneness, it's a program. Period. It's a program. If it creates any divisiveness whatsoever, it's a program. It at least has the potential of being a program. And that would include people's beliefs in twin flames or anything that creates us, we're over here and you're over there thing is to me a program or a frequency, which could be represented by a person in the physicality that is carrying the frequency of a program. So I'm not.
I agree.
Are you a program? Agree. I'm not a program.
I totally agree, but I'll have to say I am far more spiritual than you will ever be.
I know that. I'm a heathen.
Let me close with this, Todd.
You close it.
Are you ready?
Take us out with something.
Okay, relax. Adio koni sampat ni hek no shihan muat. Ni atu kasanya we na ta kosia mama yana. Ni atu kola mi atu sikawa. Chikiak sompat ne head skotan mi head. Iro den yere patne. Shiatot mahal en nut asbachane hodraha. Ino kura pamne hel. Alamotach ach no hodra mashantat nahad. Suyan yete pasne he. liato chimwa wasenia kotama wajile. Liatong shasenia, iatum shawen yaha, luniatus yankwa, nikwase. Otok nehel yatosh, ane hole amots at nuhish, alot nehechne, alat nechatne. Thank you.
Damn. Well, that was awesome, bro. That was really good. That was very good. And I've heard a lot of light language. I've never heard that dialect, but that was beautiful. That was a powerful, powerful little sermon you just did. All right. We'll get together again. We're gonna have a little Morgan and I are gonna have a little Soulogy meeting here after this show, and we're gonna keep on pushing it, and you guys keep doing what you're doing. I mean, we'll all meet in the middle, but I feel like we're all coming together and something's happening. So I just want to say thank you. Endless gratitude, peace, love, honor, reverence, respect to each and everybody. Thank you for your love and support and contributions. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Lots of love, mate. Bye.
Hey, when are we going to see your wife, by the way?
I'll drag it out next time.
All right. We'll see you. All right.